What is up, ouncers? It is the 1 ounce pour, and for those just joining, this is the hobby podcast, or as I like to say, we're just kind of loosely basing this podcast on hobbies. So today's guest is Babak, and he is my cousin, sort of.
Yeah.
Married into the family, so.
I was just thinking about what the title is. I think it's cousin-in-law.
Cousin-in-law?
Why wouldn't it be?
No, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, not kissing cousins.
We should have talked about this before starting the podcast, huh?
No, these are the kind of this is what people listen to the podcast for, is this like in-depth trying to figure out a relationship.
These authentic moments.
That's what people know the podcast, for, is our authenticity and how we like to just lay it all out there in front of our listeners. Yeah. Anyway,
I like it.
Before we get started, you've never listened to the show before, so I'll let you slide on this, but usually we have our ounce. So, chin.
Wait, can I?
You can pretend.
I'll just pretend.
Okay.
But right when I saw that you had a beer, I thought, God damn it. What am I doing? I'm upstairs now.
Dude, you're mobile. You can walk around, right?
I know, but I'm here. Let me.
You can't holler down the stairs. First off, I would be upset if you hollered at my cousin like that, and you were like, "Give me a beer," but
I was literally just thinking about that. I was gonna text her. Can you bring me a beer?
Yeah, there you go. With 2 kids, that's all good.
But what are you drinking?
Oh man, I am actually having the Pendleton 1910 rye. That's my ounce.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a rye whiskey.
I figured it was whiskey.
Yes.
I got a nice little pills here. But
ooh,
anyway,
what kind of pilsner you got?
I have a buddy at work, aka another teacher, who often gives me beer. Which doesn't seem like a very teacherly thing to do, but
I feel like that's the most teacherly thing to do. If I was a teacher and someone put an apple on my desk, I'd be like, "Nah, you got to get me a beer."
Yeah.
Do you have favorite?
Exactly.
Do you have favorite students because of that? Like they drop you off a beer?
I have. Oh, that'd be great if they did, but I'd probably have to report them too. But I definitely drink it.
Yeah.
No, this is it's called Upstanding. And it looks like it's like an Italian. Yeah, it says Italian style pills because it says pills Amici della Birra.
Ooh,
I don't know what that means, but it sounds fancy.
All right.
Yeah. So there we go.
Well, normally one of the segments on my show is called Drew's Brews Cruise, where we review a beer, and you just handled that for me. So
there we go.
Yeah. Who was the brewery?
With these new labels, man, it's hard for me to tell what's the name of the beer and what's the brewery. Is it called? I don't know. It says Upstanding Pills Amici della Birra. That must be the name of the beer.
Okay.
And then Peter Holy Brewmaster? Peter Holy?
Wow. Peter Holy. I have no idea. I'm pretending like I'm...
I don't know.
Mine is... look at this sucker. It's called Brony. I actually drank this a couple shows ago, but it's apparently a beer so good it'll make you watch the My Little Pony series.
I was gonna say it looks like a nice little mishmash.
Yeah.
No. So. Can I tell a quick story about you asking me if I've ever listened to the podcast?
Oh my God! I wish I could have segued into that a lot better than you just being like, "Can I take over and just tell a story?" But yes. Hey, have you ever been asked to be on a podcast before?
I have.
What?
A couple times.
Oh man, there has to be a story behind that, Babak. Please.
I have a really good story.
Enlighten our listeners.
It's not that good, but there were a couple other people who asked me to be on a podcast, and the first one, right when the guy started rolling, the first question he asked me was, hey, "So you've listened?" He didn't even ask me, I don't think, but he was like, "So you listen to the podcast?" I was like, "No," and I thought right away, I was like, "Shit, how stupid am I? Why didn't I do it?" And then he goes, "Oh, I thought you probably would have done that well, this is an awkward opening. And right after that, I thought, if I ever do a podcast again, I'm going to make sure that I actually listen to one before. And then I didn't.
And then you
so I
didn't.
kind of feel like a little bit of a jerk.
No, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
We're
you know
into authentic moments.
What's funny with that, I went to a job interview one time at a company that I won't say the name, but it's an app-based company, and they said, so how often do you use our app? And I was like, oh, not a lot. And the lady's like, pull your phone out. Let's see. Is it on the, I'm like, it's not where you
should have said.
It's not where you want it to be.
You should have been like, starting today, every day.
Well, I did say once I get, a little more acclimated to what you guys do. Yeah. It was difficult to figure out what they did. So I feel like that's tech interviewing all day long.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. But enough about me. What do you do for your job? You're kind of a...
Yeah, I mean, I'm a teacher. I'm a high school teacher. I teach English at a very typical Bay Area, California high school. I feel like I'm just kind of... I feel like I'm a therapist sometimes, honestly.
Ooh.
Like it's just an emotionally... I think people like often when they're thinking of teachers, they're thinking of like the person who gets the ruler out and like write an essay right now, and the kids are all listening and they do it and they get mad at you.
I still like have a lot of dreams like that. Actually, I'm naked. One of my teachers has a ruler, and I'm not getting my homework done.
I want to know what they're doing with that ruler in your dream.
It's spanking my bottom. That was what I was insinuating. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Spanking, at least.
Yeah. Have you ever spanked any of your kids? Students, not your actual children. That'd be weird.
No, and if I were the kind of person that did, I probably wouldn't say yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you never know. There could be the one person listening.
Here's a fun fact for people who aren't, honestly, even for people who are in education.
Okay.
Apparently, corporal punishment is not something that is illegal to the point where it is banned in every school district, public school district.
Oh.
Apparently, there are some public school districts around the country where there is still stuff like spanking that happens, which I find insane.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I went to a private school, so my wrestling coach was also our vice principal. And there's a rule in wrestling: you can only hit from 3 inches. Right? It's technically becomes.
I didn't even know you could hit.
Yeah, I mean it's 3 inches, so you can't really wind up and hit, but you could, in essence, pop 3 inches behind the back of the head and whack somebody with your hand, which my wrestling coach / vice principal instilled as his punishment at the school. So he's not hitting you; he's just doing a wrestling move, a little 3-inch hit. And
wait, did he do that to you?
Oh, all the time. It was insane. He did it, and what's funny?
How hard?
I mean, as hard as a wrestler could move his hand from 3 inches to the back of your head, he was quite skilled at it, and he knew it.
That's why. And
he's also one of my favorite people, so it didn't scar me for life or anything. But
it sounds like he did it. Did he do it more in a playful way, or he was legitimately trying to inflict pain on you?
Oh, he towed the line so well, I couldn't give you a solid answer on that.
Yeah, you know what? Sign of a good teacher.
Yeah, he didn't even teach me, but he taught me how to hit from 3 inches, I guess.
Well, there you go. That's the important thing.
Well, all right.
But no,
so you're a teacher and a therapist.
Yeah.
While you're in there, are you feeling like everybody else on the outside is feeling? What's going on with these children? Or are you just another day, another dollar?
I don't. That's a hard one. I feel like every year that passes, I'm a little bit less connected to the generation that I'm teaching, which it's not a profound statement to make. It's just literally a fact too. But I don't know. I feel like this generation of kids is so much more in tune with stuff that we never really thought that much about. I was just talking with your cousin about this, Rachel, my wife, for the listeners, about how they're just so much more in tune with stuff like mental health. you know, and to me it could be like a little funny and obnoxious and weird and I don't know. But they're just really like I think they're a lot more aware of the way that their environments impact them. And I think a lot of people make fun of them for stuff like that. Like, I need to take a mental health breather or something like that and excuse myself from this responsibility. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm rambling right now. I don't
No,
know how to
it's a
answer the
good ramble
question.
because I was actually expecting that to go a different way. So it's kind of cool that you get to see those students plugging into
Hmm.
their emotions and being able to kind of work through stuff
Yeah,
versus I was expecting you to be like, it's all ecstasy and Ritalin. I don't know. So
no,
that's
but
good.
I'm trying to think. The big thing that their generation is like that they're getting plagued with is like fentanyl.
Ooh,
And
see,
I mean it.
that is like fentanyl is one of those drugs. I don't know why it was invented. Like meth used to be that drug. You used to
Yeah,
look at meth and be like, why would anybody ever think this drug up? And now
yeah,
fentanyl, it's like it's a act of terrorism if you have it, because you
sure,
could
yeah.
drop a
Oh, you
certain
could,
amount in a water supply and wipe out a town.
and you're dead. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and that's we had. I think what I heard is that when I first heard about it being like such an epidemic, I thought, oh, these kids are like very willingly taking this stuff. But I guess the most common way in which like teenagers are dying from it is totally accidental. Like
Yeah.
they could get stuff from like their buddy's friend. They have no idea like how it's made, how it's whatever. And all it takes is like you have a little higher of a dose than you should or that you're expecting, and that's it. So I mean, that's definitely like you know, you got kids too. Like anytime I hear stuff like this, I'm like, oh shit. I think I have to like study up on this in 7, 8, 9 years.
Well, it's hard
Right?
because there's like two sides to it, you know? Yes, fentanyl is out there and it's
Yeah.
super dangerous. Don't take any kind of drugs that you don't know where it came from. And then there's the other side of it where it's like they're putting it in candy and handing it out to kids and just fear mongering. Where I'm like, nobody is actually giving out free drugs in America right now. Like that's
But
that's
I
never
think
going to
you
happen.
cut out. You cut out for like 10 seconds. What was the last thing that
Oh,
you
I
said? I'm
was
sorry.
just saying that the big fear mongering piece is that they're putting the fentanyl in like candy and handing it out to children.
Oh
And I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
nobody's
I
giving
actually
out
haven't even
free
heard that.
drugs. There is nobody in
No,
America handing out free drugs right now.
no, that would be unlikely.
Yeah, it's a
But yeah,
product. You got to pay for it.
yeah.
But this is not a show about drugs, even though sometimes it may seem like it. This is a show about hobbies. Usually, what I like to do is ask politely what hobbies you'd like to talk about, and then I will demand later on what hobbies I want you to talk about. So, Bobik,
Yeah.
what kind of hobbies do you have?
So recently, I've been playing a lot of chess, actually. I would say
Wow.
that that's been my number one hobby for like a good year and a half or so. It's
Okay.
kind of crazy to think it's been that long, but I play a lot of online chess. So
Strictly online? Are you playing against people that you know, or?
I've done a mix. It's mainly online because Rachel doesn't really like to play. She doesn't really like to play me anything. She gets really frustrated with playing games against me. And I don't like my kids can't play. They have no idea. Like Nora calls it cheese. She's like, "Are you playing cheese?"
You gotta play cheese?
Yeah. So it's just like super easy and fast to find games online. And I had played like as a kid. My uncle taught me, and I, every once in a while, like when I'd be in Germany, I'd play with him. But that would be it. It wasn't until like the pandemic hit that I started kind of picking it up and playing it a lot more.
Just
So
watching the Queen's
yeah.
Gambit, and you're like, I'm hooked. Gotta do
No,
it.
you know what's funny? What's funny? Have you seen that show?
I have, yeah.
Okay, it's a great
It's
show.
amazing.
But what's funny is I didn't get hooked on it from that, but I did start watching Queen's Gambit later because my students knew that I played chess, and they're
Okay.
like, "You got to watch this show." So, but the funny thing is, I guess the Queen's Gambit is what got a bunch of people to start playing chess again.
Yeah, it
So
was
in a
like a
way,
500% increase
Oh,
in
really?
chess boards and chess sets being sold.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was insane. It was
Yeah.
like this huge influx of people. Because, I mean, pandemic was, happening. We're all stuck at home. She's making it look real sexy to move the chess pieces around. And, yeah. I think that caused everyone to get into chess and alcoholism. So
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, so I've been doing that. That's mainly been, I feel like, of the limited, when you, as a parent, like I feel like now all I really have is like, oh, the kids are in bed. Like we couldn't do this podcast
Dude, you're looking
until
at
now.
exactly
Probably you too.
why.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's like no time. And when I do have the time, like I was telling Rachel, I actually took Nora ice skating today for the first time. We went
awesome.
there, and another hobby that I used to do, I used to play hockey a lot, but it was more like roller. But I saw a bunch of guys at the rink. They have several rinks there, and one of them, they were playing a game of hockey, and I was like, God damn it, like I wish that I could do that again. It's just been such a long time, and I couldn't imagine having the time to commit to something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I just feel like whatever I do now, it has to be like something that I could really quickly pick up, really quickly put down. I don't want to be spending like 20, 30 minutes putting gear on, and taking it off. So,
no, yeah. I mean, it's unfortunately we're going to be segueing now to, dads and hobbies, because that is the hardest thing with hobbies, and especially hobbies that take up any amount of time. Like I was really into dirt biking. I sold my dirt bike because it's a whole day event, gearing up, going out, spending all the time, coming back. By the time I got back, it was late, and Ellie's all pissed at me about spending the day, and didn't have that hobby on the list of, top priorities. Yeah. So there it went.
Would you and Ellie go a lot, like before you had kids, or no?
So she's never dirt biked. But the cool part is I got Layla a little electric dirt bike. So now she's starting. Oh, yeah. And she's actually really good. And I'm hoping one day when she wins Supercross, she's going to be like, oh, my dad started me when I was like 4, and he's the reason I'm up here. That's the whole goal, right? Is to get your kids famous.
So is she's actually like dirt biking?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's crazy. These new little dirt bikes, these little electric ones, you can program them to go a certain speed, and it's dope. Nice. So, yeah, she's really good at it. And it actually helped her learn how to ride a bike without training wheels.
Oh, funny.
Because of that balance aspect. So now she kind of kicks and then gets on the bike and goes. We had her with a bicycle with training wheels, and she goes, Dad, can you just take these off? And I was like, wow. Are you sure? And those, videos of the dads, and they're holding their daughter up, and they're like, oh, you got this. And then they take off in that proud dad moment. I didn't get that because I took them off, and when I turned around, she was riding it. And I was like, wow,
That's wild. Well, so what you're saying is you're going to put the training wheel businesses out of business, right?
Oh, man. This company, I think all you need is Stasic or something, the electric motorcycle company. They're geniuses.
Okay.
Yeah. Look them up.
Yeah. So why buy $10 training wheels when you could buy a $1,000 bike?
The coolest part is it's less than that too. Runs off a little drill battery. I'm selling you on this. I know you're already starting to think about it.
Yeah, I want to do it. I wish in our house. I mean, you guys are in Utah. We're in San Jose.
That's true. There is a different environment. Yeah.
It's funny though, because the guy who lives 2 doors down from us has like 3 dirt bikes in his garage, and we're just like, where the hell do you go? No idea.
Where there's a will, there's a way, man.
Yeah.
Those people know where to go. Exactly.
Yeah. So,
chess. I don't know how much more you can talk about chess. What's your favorite opening move?
I don't know. I mean, do you know chess?
I don't know names, but I'll pretend like I do.
Do you know, like, the notation, what people mean when they say chess notation?
No, absolutely not. No.
Okay, so, like, if I say my favorite opening is E4, E5? I think it's E4. See, there's a lot of people who, like, get really obsessive over, like, knowing the specific names of openings. I don't do any of that.
Okay.
Like, I just kind of go, okay, if I move my pawn here and that guy moves his pawn there, I know now to move my knight here. So I kind of know it by like seeing it, but I don't really know the names.
Well, cool.
But I'll tell you. Actually, I know one name, and it's of one opening that I'm really good with. It's called the Italian. That's what it's called.
All right.
It sounds fancy. It's like my beer.
Yeah. You really like Italians, don't you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Right.
I mean, you guys are Italian, right?
I mean, supposedly. We're refusing to do the swab test because it'll come back like Irish, and we'll all be pissed, and our whole lives will just crumble. And
yeah. No, I mean your grandma makes ravioli, so you're Italian.
There you go.
As long as you have a grandma who makes handmade ravioli, you can't not be Italian.
I feel like as long as my middle name is Colombo, I can at least hold on to that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we got that going for us. But
yep.
So let's finish up on chess because I want to talk to you about something totally different.
Yeah, that's fine.
And chess isn't,
I mean,
great hobby, but I don't know if we could expand around chess for too long.
We can move on. Okay. We can move on already.
Are you ready?
If you want.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Comedy. Talk to us about comedy, man.
Yeah.
You're a very interesting human being. With that being, the backbone of everything. How long have you been doing comedy?
Oh, man. The first time I did it, actually, I know exactly. The first time that I ever did it was on my 23rd birthday. So, God, it's insane to think that was 12 years ago or 12 and a half years ago, something like that. But I mean, I haven't done it in a few years now. It goes back to that whole thing I was saying about being a dad.
Yeah.
I feel like ever since that whole process started, it was just so much more difficult for me to justify. I can't even imagine asking my wife, like, hey,
You gotta pick your moments, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, but I've done it since I was 23.
At 23, what got you into it, though? I mean,
I had always wanted to do it. I think I remember being a little kid, like first or second grade, and telling my dad that I wanted to be a comedian. And I don't know if at the time I knew why. I don't even know if I knew any comedians back then, but I just remember seeing that, like, whenever we had a lot of people over when I was a kid, that the thing that got you attention was making people laugh, and I think that was where it kind of started for me, was just, okay, I see that, when I was a kid, I loved attention. How do I get attention? That's one way to do it. I felt like I was able to be, like, I think around 4th, 5th grade, I started to notice that I was funny in some ways, annoying in a lot of ways, but sometimes funny. And just from there, I wanted to keep cultivating that. And I literally at one point, like, it's kind of embarrassing to admit, I had made a Word document. The kids today don't know what that is. But I made a Word document, and I was so scared to death to tell anyone that I was doing this. But it was a Word document just compiling, like, jokes that I would tell if I ever did stand-up. And I think I made that in, like, 7th grade.
Do you still have that?
I do. I think I do.
Oh, my God.
And I remember thinking when I made the Word document, like, no one can ever find this. So, like, I thought, what do I name this? So no one ever opens, and I just called it library. So there's, like, a document on my computer still just called library. I never changed the name of it. But I've kind of, like, evolved from there, and now have, like, a notepad on my phone, like the Apple app, right? And I just still, like, I know that I'm not going to be doing stand-up anytime soon, but I'm always just thinking, that would be, like, a funny joke, and just kind of putting it on there.
Yeah.
So I have, every once in a while, I'll just open the app when I'm bored and just read through and go, oh, yeah, I got to do these jokes sometime. So I don't know, I guess keep on rambling, but, like, I feel like even though I started when I was 23, I had just kind of been working towards it mentally and emotionally since I was probably, like, in my early teens, and it was just, like, way too afraid to try it. I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
You see stand-up comedians on TV, and they're in these big stadiums, and you don't know where the genesis of that is from.
Right.
And
where
then
was,
I think
at 23, where was your genesis, though? I mean, like, were you just walking and saw a club and walked into it, or found a
no,
troupe?
so there's actually one of the reasons that I dove into it then was years before. I want to say when I was like 18, 19, I had found out about a comedy club in the town I'm from called Sunnyvale, like typical suburban Bay Area town. This place called Rooster T. Feathers. Rooster T. Feathers is actually like a really well-known kind of small, intimate comedy club. Like big names have been there. Like I think Robin Williams performed there before, and like it's like a small place. Like I
Oh,
don't even
that's
think
cool.
100 people could fit in there. And it's also famous for being the first ever place to have a video game arcade box in it.
Oh, really?
Atari made Pong. Yeah, the first ever Pong machine was in this place. So it has like this history and whatever, and it was just known as like the comedy club in our suburban town. And I just always in the back of my head thought, oh, okay, like maybe I'll be there sometime. And then I found out that there's open mic nights, and I found out what that is, and that, oh, anyone can go there, anyone could stand up. And then I had found out that, oh, there was an open mic night on my birthday that year.
Oh, okay.
And to me, it was like, if that's not a sign, then,
Very
what
kismet,
would be?
right?
So. And I had never told anyone. I think I had mentioned a couple times to people that I knew that I wanted to try it. But when I finally booked it, I think at the time, Facebook invitations were a thing. I don't know if they still are. But I invited all my friends, and that was the way they found out that I wanted to try doing stand up. And yeah, and that was it.
Wow. Okay. And
Yeah.
what were your thoughts going on stage for your first time, though?
That's a good question. I can hardly remember. I remember that I had 15 minutes, which I think to this day is like one of the longest sets
That's
I've
a
ever
good
done.
amount of time to be up
Yeah.
there.
Well, and I look back, yeah, and like thinking, knowing that it was my first time, it was like really wild that I went that long. But they let me because so many people came to see me.
Oh,
And I
okay.
remember because it was my birthday, right? And I remember when I got in, and I didn't know at the time, oh, yeah, all the comics hang out in the back, or, sometimes there's a green room, and I was sitting with them, and I heard a couple of them go, like, man, there's a ton of people here today. So I knew that, okay, there's a lot of people who are probably here for me, and it made me a lot more comfortable. And I think the fact that I had never done it before had a little less pressure on me. So there weren't as many. I actually would end up getting way more nervous in the next few times that I did it afterwards. But I had prepped because I knew it was 15 minutes. I had like looked through that freaking Microsoft Word doc,
The
and I
library.
just was like, what? Yeah, what are the best ones? And I just tried to find segues between the jokes. I think there's still video of my first time. And honestly, I was really lucky. Like I was pretty funny. I think it definitely helped that like so many people were there to see me, so they probably would have laughed either way. But I did well enough that the host came up to me and was like, "I want you on a show at
Oh,
the
that's
Improv."
cool.
It was really cool. Yeah, I was super humbled by it, but it was funny because the next show I did was this like it was a big gig for this guy who was headlining, who actually just finished in the semifinals of America's Got Talent like a year ago.
Oh, no way.
Like he
What's
was,
his name?
yeah. His name is Kabir Singh. He's not like this huge household name, but he has had a few viral videos on like TikTok, and he used to write for Family Guy, I guess, and he went all the way to the semifinals for America's Got Talent. So he ended up being pretty big, but it was crazy because you go from this small club where it's like this is so small, it's in my hometown, whatever, to like the Improv in San Jose. And the moment I walk in, I'm like, holy shit, this is like a theater. And I go up in the green room, and there's these people who have been doing comedy for like literally like decades. And I'm sharing the stage with them, and this is my second time ever.
Yeah.
And I started to kind of freak out, and I don't think I did terrible, but like it was my second time, and like the guy who ended up like being the setup for the headliner had to tell me afterwards, he's like, "Hey man, you got to hold the microphone closer." Like I was making those kinds of mistakes still, but it was wild, to go to make that kind of a jump that fast. Like it felt wrong, you know.
When did you
But it
feel
was
like
cool.
it started to click for you?
Like click in what sense?
Like you kind of got your stride, you had some good polished jokes. Like when
You know, I don't know that I've never became someone who did it regularly. You know, it would like there'd be like comedy competitions. One year I ended up making the finals of a comedy competition at the same comedy club, Rooster Teeth Feathers. That was probably when I felt it was easiest for me. But to be honest, I don't think I ever became regular enough to ever have felt like comfortable. Like I felt like it was always just like, I don't know what this show's going to be like. Like, is this going to be a good one? Is this going to be not a good one? And I can usually tell like as I'm going up on stage. Um, but I don't think I had comedy and still don't feel that I have it figured out well enough to know what factored into that, right? And I feel like that's the difference between like, you know, because you do comedy too, right? When's the last time you did comedy? A while or?
2017. It's been a
So
minute.
honestly, yeah, I was just gonna say like it's around as long as it's been for me. You know, I think I did it like as recent as 2019 or 2018, but yeah, it's like the people who do it all the time, who I had met a lot of while I did do it, they just it's almost like a science to them, I feel. And they have such a good feel for it and they don't stress as much about it and they're like okay with having bad nights. And
Yeah.
I don't think I ever got to that. Like I feel like that was something that was really important, was like you need to be able to go up there knowing I might bomb and like be okay with it. And I don't think I ever got to that point. I
I
think I was
never
always so
figured
afraid of
that
that.
part out.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
go home and just like, oh, fuck. Like, are you kidding? Why'd you even attempt that joke? Why'd you go out
Yeah.
there? And then the next time we went out, you know, it'd be like the veteran guy that's like, dude, that's how you figure out what works and what doesn't work. Like, you
Yeah.
know, you gotta
Exactly.
bomb every once in a while. But these guys would like, their sets were so routine and so polished, and they weren't
Mhm.
working on the jokes anymore. They were working on like how to deliver it
Yeah.
perfectly and the exact
Yeah.
cadence they were going to use and all of that. So, well, what was
Well, and
your
that's another.
worst bomb joke? You don't
Oh,
have
I
to.
was
You don't have to tell the joke, but like, what was the
I won't
scenario?
tell the joke.
Or
No,
tell the
this
joke.
is
Do it. I want to hear if you got a good one.
I can't even tell the joke if I think I had bombed so poorly that I forced the exact joke from my
Just
brain so that I
vaporized
would
it
never
from your
have to
memory.
retell it. No, there was one time. I had referenced this comedy competition. Every year Rooster Teeth Feathers has this comedy competition. And I you know, this is the first time I think that I ever enlisted in it. And this is after I had like several successful like comedy shows. Some of them paid.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like I'm, you know, 5 minutes for the first round of this comedy competition among a bunch of people who are amateurs, I'll be fine. And because it was 5 minutes, I thought, okay, well, like, do I tell a bunch of small little jokes or do I tell like one really funny joke? And I ended up doing the latter, which was really not a good idea because I learned fast, you will never know how good a joke is until you're out there.
Oh yeah.
And the worst thing you want to do
Wait.
for a
So this
5 minute
was
set of,
an unworked joke. You just went out there and
oh yeah,
gave him a
yeah,
freshie.
yeah. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a freshie in my mind because I ran it by my closest friend before, which is also not a wonderful
No.
barometer for how good a joke is. But
Uh,
I'll tell you the framework of the joke or like the premise. The joke was about how when I was a kid, um, I'm trying to even remember how I set this up. It was something about, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I was like really afraid that there was a penguin in my backyard. Like this is true. I was really afraid there was a penguin in my backyard. And I think like the first part of the joke involved me going like, what did I think? There was some murderous penguin, and then like did like a yeah, it's really funny, right? And then did like a Joe Pesci
no.
voice impersonating the penguin.
Joe,
And I can't even
wait,
remember
was
what
the
I
penguin
said.
Joe Pesci?
Yeah, it was like a New Jersey penguin, and it was like, and my
Oh,
friend thought that that was so funny,
okay.
and I was like, this is fucking hilarious. And then I went up there and like it was one of those jokes where like I started telling it and like already no one's laughing and I was like, oh maybe, and you get to the point where you're like you realize that it's just no one's gonna laugh. But it was so early on in the joke.
No, so you
And I
still
was just
had like 4 minutes left.
and I can't remember if I told only that joke for the whole time, but it was definitely like a majority of it. But dude, this is the worst part of it. I bombed. A bunch of friends of mine, a bunch of people I hadn't seen in years who had heard I'd done comedy came to this show.
That's how it works though, right?
And that was, oh yeah, I know. And they all like saw me do a terrible, terrible job. And 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 you could tell it was bad because like some of them came up to me afterwards and like, I'm so sorry, and they're like, no, it was good. And here's the worst part is this was part of the comedy competition. Ton of people came out to see me. The way they determined who went through is based on votes from the audience.
Oh no.
So they announce the top 3 and like the number 1 guy goes out, number 2 person goes out. And in my head, I'm like, don't fucking call me up there. And they call my name and I like made the cutoff. And I walked up there and, the lights pouring on you and, people are laughing. And all I could think of, and I looked at the guy in the audience who like didn't walk up, who was like, you clearly should have been up here. And I was so humiliated for myself.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and what was so funny...
So not only did you have the worst joke, but then you got promoted for having just people there.
Yes, exactly. To get them to be even more pissed off at me. And what was and this is the scariest part, Drew, is that was 5 minutes. It was the first time I bombed, and it was like terrible.
Oh.
And I had a paid gig at the San Francisco Punchline 1 week later. And it was like a 15-minute thing. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like I had 5 minutes and how do I know I'm not going to do that for like 15 minutes in San Francisco? And I went through my library doc and I like found all these jokes. I'm like, I need to go to these like tried and true ones. I have to go to other ones that I know are funny. And I ended up, I think, having like one of the best sets I ever did, like just awesome. 1 week later. Yeah. And it was, that was actually right when I met Rachel. I think it was like I had met Rachel just a few weeks before that because she was supposed to come to my Penguin joke show and she couldn't make it. And thank God. Yeah, I know. Wow.
Things could be different. We may not be cousins. So.
No.
She could have saw that and been like,
cousin-in-laws.
What the doing Joe Pesci Penguin? What are you doing? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
This guy has...
Yeah, exactly. No, so that was the worst that I ever bombed, by far.
So your library doc, it sounds like it is a constant evolution then. It's not just a bunch of like 8-year-old jokes. It's you're constantly filling them back in and...
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'd go back and I'd look at one and I'd go like, oh, I could probably add a little bit to this, and I would. And I don't think that's another thing that I don't think I did this long enough for to ever really figure out. I never figured out, and I'm curious what works for you, because I know you went through this too when you did it, like where you're writing jokes, like what would your process be? Because to me, if I came up with an idea, I'd kind of oscillate between, okay, maybe I just write like the premise down and then just like, revisit or whatever, and then just like think and practice it in my head how I would say it, or do I like come up with like like a script, like I'm gonna say it like this. And I felt like sometimes one way worked and sometimes the other way worked, and I never really figured out what the best process was, so it was really like a lot of trial and error for me. But is that what you did? How did you come up with your jokes?
I think I knew, like, I had things that at like house parties would be funny, and I'd be like, okay, I got to figure out how to make that a joke. Like, I'm going to tell one, and I'm just going to tell you the premise, and you're going to be like, what the fuck? But basically,
is it a Joe Pesci impersonation?
It's not a Joe Pesci. I wish it was this good.
Okay.
The worst part about this joke is that it got so many laughs. Just I mean, eruption laughter. It was the first time I've ever got like full bellies heaving eruption laughter. And I literally still to this day think it's the dumbest fucking joke I've ever done in my entire life. It's so dumb. So basically,
when you say it got all that laughter, you're talking about like at parties before you turned it into a joke, or like
no,
when you performed
like when I performed it as a joke. Like at parties,
okay.
I would do this to people, and it would make them uncomfortable. And I like making people uncomfortable. So anyway, you know when people are talking and they give you the whole like, you know, oh yeah, Bob was talking the other day, and they give you the whole jerk off hand thing. Yeah. Well, eventually they kind of like finish it a little bit. And if you're standing across from him, you just pretend like you catch it in your mouth. And it's just the dumbest thing in the world, but that is, I would tell the story about how I would do this at parties.
Yeah.
And people would just, that one got people. And then, I forgot what the other one was. I'll figure it out at 3 a.m. this morning. But it was just one of those things where like, it was funny at parties, so I made it into a joke. And then for jokes that I wrote, I would write down a premise, and then I'd go back and I'd try and figure out the rest of it. And there were so many times it never worked. And I would try it still because, I mean, I was going almost every week and just trying to...
You were performing every week?
Trying to. Some weeks I'd have to miss, and we'd get paid for some gigs. I'd go to those, and we wouldn't get paid for other gigs. I wouldn't go to those. But I mean, I was just like throwing stuff against the wall to see if it stuck. Cause I had like stories that I would tell, but you really have to have like, you know, the punchiness to the story for it actually to be funny. Yeah. And I had a couple of them that were all right. But I told this one joke about being Italian from the waist down. And I explained like, you know, I'm Italian, but like I don't have the big chest hair and the back hair and all this stuff. And I'm like, but you know, luckily I was blessed and I'm Italian from the waist down. And then the punchline after all this stupid setup was, you know, yeah, it looks exactly like Italy. And I thought in my head, I thought this is hilarious because everybody's picturing like, you know, furry, whatever. And then, you know, oh, actually his penis looks like Italy. Now that I look back, like it's the dumbest thing I've ever come up with.
I think it's funny.
I told that joke and it was so devastating because I think that was either the first or second time I bombed hard. And I told that joke and it wasn't even like a pity chuckle. It was just dead. And I looked and there was some like gal sitting at a table. I'll never forget her face because she did this like whoa kind of face, like uh-oh. But it was like she was telling all her friends like this guy sucks. I was like no, I didn't need to look directly at her, but so I was sweating the whole time I was on stage after that, and I still had the rest of my set to do. But yeah, it sucks when you bomb.
Did you feel that one of the biggest predictors of your success, did you feel that your success was more based on just the general objective quality of your jokes, or did you feel a lot of it had to do with like how good you were feeling when you walked up there? Because like the reason I asked that is because I honestly, like, looking back at it, I felt like there were times where like I told a joke and like people didn't laugh. I'm like, that's a funny fucking joke. Like I know that joke would work, but it just, something's not working right now. And I felt like often I was able to kind of feel what the night would be like as I started talking, you know?
So did you prep yourself before you got on stage? Were you like, I mean, kind of gearing up for it?
Like, yeah, I mean, to a degree. I mean, how could you not, in my mind, at least? Like, I feel like, you know, I'm running through my routine. I don't know, like I remember there was the day that I met Rachel, actually. I met her at a comedy show. I don't know if she told you that.
I think I've heard that story. I don't think I've got the full in-depth version, but...
So she... I swear to God, I actually think... I'm almost 100% sure that I performed that night that was a week after... Like, it was that night that she came and watched. Because that, to this day, was, like, my best set by far. Like I got more. There's a guy who has a TV show on on Netflix. His name is Sammy Obeid, and he has the Guinness World Record for most nights in a row doing stand up.
Okay.
And he was the headliner that day, and I got more laughs than him, and I still remember that.
Okay.
And it was just one of those like lightning in a bottle things. You know, a lot of my friends were there too, so I can't pretend like it was just me. But like, I just remember before going up there, like I was going doing the rounds, checking out people at the tables, talking to my friends and stuff, and I was just really feeling it. Like it was one of the only nights ever where I didn't feel the need to constantly run through my routine in my head
Mm-hmm.
before going up. I just felt like I knew it. I felt comfortable. And yeah, it's just like the more I think about it, I really feel like, it's funny because to a degree, teaching is not that different. Like there's some days where like my lesson's not great, but reflecting on it, I'm like, I think it was honestly just like my vibe or like
I think that has a lot to
my,
do with it. Like the confidence that
yeah,
you bring up on stage and like
yes,
the
yeah,
swagger that you go up on stage with. I mean, like I wouldn't say I was like a character, but I kind of felt like, okay, I need to turn on this different person to go up on stage. And, I had like
yeah,
cowboy boots on. I'd full on like
yeah.
swagger up there,
Well, and I think you like that's it helps you so much too because there's nothing that like disarms an audience more than your confidence in the sense that like I don't know, like you've been to when you're at these shows and you're watching like someone go up and you don't know how they're going to do if it's like an open mic, you get nervous for the person.
Oh,
Like if they're
so
not
hard
confident,
too.
yeah, you
Especially if
get
you
you
kind of
get
like them.
pulled and yeah, like you don't want them like in the moment you notice that they're nervous, it makes you not want to laugh. You know, even if you want to laugh for them, you just feel like you can't and you're more like queasy and like, or you're forcing the laughter and it's not genuine. And I don't know, sometimes like people who get the most laughs are not even the people who are like the funniest, but for whatever reason, it's really funny that they feel really comfortable saying what they're saying.
Yeah.
And if you watch, like to me, the best example of that, I don't even think he's that funny, but like Jerry Seinfeld's old stand-up.
Oh,
Like if you
absolutely.
watch old stand-up tape of him, there's some shows where like he's just telling joke after joke after joke that's like, he has his like cheesy, corny, like non-offensive jokes and like not many people are laughing. And he just has this like swagger that like every time he continues saying the next joke that's not that funny, people just it just like builds and builds and builds. And I don't know, I think a big part of it is just like you feeling sure that what you're saying is funny.
Yeah.
Like I think it's funny and if you see that I think it's funny, you're probably going to think the same thing too, or think it's funny that I don't know what it is. But
I think that has a
yeah.
lot to do with it. I don't think that would have ever helped my Italian from the waist down joke, but maybe it would have helped your Joe Pesci
My
Penguin joke,
penguin
though.
one. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
about that one either. Some jokes are meant to die.
So, did you have like a set polished routine that you were like, this is my opening joke. I got some
Oh
filler.
yeah.
I got a
Can
middle joke, and I got a closing joke.
I had an opening joke that it didn't really kill every time. In fact, sometimes it really disgusted people, but I thought it was a good I could
Ooh,
share it.
can
It's
you?
kind of
Please
gross.
do. No, I'm
Yeah.
excited.
So there's a I had listened to like tips from like other comedians and stuff, and one of the big tips that I heard from like comedians is try to start with jokes about what makes you unique, like things like your name or your heritage, whatever.
Yeah.
So my first joke was what I used to know exactly how to. Oh yeah, it's just about my name because people don't know my name. It's Babak, right? It's an unfamiliar name. Say, hey guys, my name's Babak. It's easy to remember. It's kebab backwards, um, which makes sense because I've been told that I taste better from behind. And it was one of those
Yes.
jokes that
Oh my
like
god.
people you hear it for it's like people pause for a second and then you hear like a few chuckles and then it just starts building. And I love that. I love the jokes where I'd
Yes.
say it and I just let it marinate for a second and people would start appreciating it more.
You can just
So
sit
that was
back.
an easy one. Yeah, that was an easy one that made me feel pretty good. And then there was a joke that I told that evolved actually. Like I felt like some of my best jokes were ones that like I didn't I came up with the joke first, but it wasn't until I went through the joke several times during practicing it that I came up with like a little addendum that I was like, oh, that would make it really
Ooh,
funny. So
okay.
one of them was about how I'm like half Persian and half German. So I'd be like, hey, I'm multicultural, and that's really hard because it's hard for me to make decisions. I have all these voices in my head telling me what to do. So like I got my paycheck the other day, and I'm trying to remember like the order that I go on, but it's like, my Persian side's like, what? No. Oh yeah, my Persian side's like, why don't you save your money? And then like my American side's like, why don't you spend it all? And then like I had come up with the idea later on about like, oh no, that now I'm remembering. And then I'd say it, and then my Persian American side's like, why don't you spend all your money on cologne? If you know Persian Americans, it's because they're you get it. And then I thought later while I was telling the joke to my friend, and then my German side's like, why don't you kill all the Jews? like, and that got like lots of laughs. Very inappropriate, but so I feel like for a while those were like my two go-tos that I would use a lot, and then there was always a joke that I told to end it that people thought was really funny. It was about like the like when it was still new, like you'd have to give $1 to like Safeway or
Yeah.
whatever would have like a
The Santa or
hey.
whatever.
Well, it would always like you're checking out and they're
Oh,
asking
like you
for a
want to
dollar for
round up
cancer
to the
research.
yeah.
Sure, yeah, and actually the reason I came up with the joke was because one time I was at Safeway and I was ordering, or I like was in line, whatever. I paid, and it said, "Do you want to donate $1 to cancer, whatever?" And then I'm like, and I clicked no, and it wouldn't like work. So I got really nervous and I like kept clicking no and it kept not working and eventually I just like clicked yes. But I thought, how funny would it have been for me to just be like, it's not working, and them going like, why don't you just press it? I'm like, I'm not. No. So the whole joke's about me like being unwilling to like, pay for the dollar and holding the line up and all that stuff. And there's like a lot of things that I'd add to it and change about it, and where like I'd realize, oh, this kind of relates to that old joke that I told earlier in the set. Let me call back to that. So I just felt like, I had this routine, but there were some of those jokes I'd always like try to liven up and evolve to a degree. But I also felt like one of the reasons I feel like I could never be like a professional stand-up comedian is because I feel like I could like there's these jokes that I was just like, I don't think I'll ever be able to come up with a funnier joke than this. And that's not to say like this joke is so funny, but it's more of a I feel creatively bankrupt. Like,
Yeah.
how do these comedians literally like year after year come up with like funnier material? Like that was so insane to me, and I don't think I could ever have done that.
Yeah, but I mean, now sitting at home with your 2 kids and wife and a whole new lens on life, aren't you writing down different jokes in your Apple that you're like, this is actually funnier?
It's funny. I feel like I've been so removed. It's while I'm talking to you right now, by the way, I'm opening up my super long document in my notepad just to see like the last time that I updated it. Actually, I remember adding this joke. I've only added like 4 jokes since I've had kids, I think.
Isn't it hard to be creative?
It's really,
It's
yeah, like I
nuts.
feel
It's
Rachel
insane.
Rachel and I've talked about how like having kids, you're so like clouded mentally that it's just hard to find space in any way to be creative. And it's like a fog almost.
Yeah, it is one of those fun little tidbits that I feel everybody is just holding close to their chest when you ask them like, "Oh, what's parenting like?" And they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, it's wonderful," blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden you get into it and they're like, "Hey, how's that creativity flowing, huh?" And you're like, "It sucks." And they're like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
welcome to the club, bitch."
Yeah.
It's like, "Well, this is fun. Thanks for
But
the heads up."
that's why parenting is so great that like you're willing to kill everything else that you did, like you're willing to like destroy the rest of your life the like all the things that you had fun doing to like have these kids, you know?
It's true.
I guess that's
and,
one way of looking at it.
I hope that one day you get to re-indulge in comedy, because I think the world deserves it.
Dude, I was just thinking, like, I want to see you perform.
I don't think
Like,
I could anymore.
Yes. So
No,
why couldn't you?
I don't think so. One of my buddies was out here and we were drinking, and he's like, dude, I never got to see, like, tell me a joke. Like, tell me a joke. And I'm like, I can't.
Which never works.
It never works.
doesn't work
It's
that way.
never, ever worked. And I'm like, dude, I can't just like stand up. Like, it's a whole thing. Like, I got to prep.
Yeah.
I have to have the exact 2 whiskeys. I have to like have my notepad. I have to feel comfortable. I have to do my intro. I have to walk on. It's a thing. And he's like, come on, just give me like a gist. So I told him the best joke I ever wrote was about provolone. And I'll stand behind this joke all day long. It was the best joke I ever wrote. And I told him the joke, and at the end, he was just like, I mean, I guess it was probably funny when you were up on stage. I was like, yeah exactly.
Asshole.
That's fucking exactly how it works.
Yeah.
It's just me with bright lights, and then people laugh. Like, it's
no, I think, and I mean this in earnest. I think we should find an opportunity when our families get together,
oh my God,
where they all
yes.
come, they all, you know, your parents or like Rachel's mom, so whoever can like watch the kids one night, and we'll go out and we'll perform, and our wives can come, and some other select members of our family, friends could come, whatever. And we just both perform at like an open mic night. And who cares if we're not funny?
It would be fun. It would be fun. And here's the thing about like stand-up comedy for me. It's like karaoke, right? I'm going to be like, oh, no, you know, no. I am dying to get up there and do it anyway. So all I need is someone to be like, get up there. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. And then I'll bomb. But at least I have no shame. And I think that's why I felt okay doing comedy. There was stuff that I was upset with my delivery and like how the joke came out. But I don't know if I ever felt shame afterwards, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that was
tell
my
a penguin joke, and you'll feel a lot of shame.
Again, Italian from the waist down joke was your penguin joke. Like, it was so bad, and I didn't feel shame. I felt like bummed that I was so bad at delivering that joke. It
feels good. I feel like it feels good to know you get stuff like that out of the way, right? Like
you have to.
You have to, right? You bombed, and that's okay. Like you made it out. You made out of it just fine, and you can grow from it. But no, I've told Rachel like a ton. Like you just have a great voice for stand up. You're like
that, like Charlie Day kind of annoying grinding voice.
No, not at all. You know who you sound like?
No, please don't say it.
Do you know who I'm going to say?
No, but whoever it is, I'm going to be disappointed.
No, it's a guy. It's a guy who I think has been canceled.
Oh, good. That's a good way to start. Like, that guy that like exposed himself in front of children. Like that guy. Yeah, you sound like him.
I think his name is TJ Miller.
Yeah, okay, I get that a lot. We both have the curly hairs. That's about it.
No, but like you sound like him.
I think it's the slight lisp in our voices.
I don't think that's what it is.
No?
Not to me, at least.
All right. Well, hey, I think TJ Miller is a cool dude. I think he was canceled because he made a bomb threat on a bus or something.
Exactly.
But,
like a train. Yeah.
I'll take that over like some guy that, exposed himself to children. So
I think he actually had sexual assault stuff too.
Damn it, TJ. No, it's hard. Yeah. My favorite time I've ever been told I look like, not sound like, but look like a celebrity was one of our guys at the dealership I worked at. He would like empty all the trash cans and stuff, and he was on a program. But he walked up to me one day and he said, "Drew, I have to tell you something, and I don't want this to go to your head." And I was like, "Oh, okay, what's up, man?" And he's like, "You look like Star-Lord." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Oh, like Chris Pratt.
Yeah, and I was like, "Damn, dude." Like, and this is right as Chris Pratt got super hot.
Big.
Right? And he's like, "But like Star-Lord, but before he was Star-Lord. And he's like, did you ever see that show Parks and Rec? And I was like, God damn it. Are you saying I look like fat Chris Pratt? And he's like, well, not fat, but bigger. And I was like, damn it. The one time I get a good celebrity.
Funny. Like, that's still a good one, though. I don't think that's bad.
I mean, there's hope, right? Because he was fat and then he got good looking and then he got annoying. But yeah, there's hope.
There you go.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten somebody walking up and saying you look like so-and-so?
Even specifically like at a comedy show or just?
No, just in general.
Oh, you should look this guy up. There's a guy who I used to look so similar to that my mom saw a picture of him and literally thought it was me. He's a French Moroccan comedian.
Okay.
And his name is Gad, G-A-D, El Maleh, E-L-M-A-L-E-H. And if you do an image search on him, it's the only person ever that I was told that I look like, that when I saw him, I was like, oh, wow, I do kind of look like him.
Huh.
Yeah, and the first time I heard about it was from a French exchange student when I was in university, and she was like, you look just like this guy. And then when I went to France, a bunch of people told me the same thing.
I should have just played it off as you were him.
Yeah, I know.
Got some drinks or such.
No, but I feel like I feel like everyone, it's the case for everyone, like, different stages of your life, you have different, like, doppelganger identifications. Like, when I was in high school, everyone thought I looked like Ray Romano.
Oh, you know.
I haven't gotten that in a long time, but then I did. And then
I think it's just like the nose, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, yeah. I think I had darker skin then, too. I don't know.
All right.
But, yeah, Italian from the waist up.
Thank you. See, I'll tell you what, callbacks when you're up there on stage, that's gold. Nothing made me feel better than like doing a callback and getting people laughing. Like, oh, I remember when he said that like 10 minutes ago. And you're like, yeah, exactly. That's what I was doing.
It's such a funny concept. Like, that's really all it is. It's like, I remember you said that.
We were here when he said that 10 minutes ago. And you're like, yeah.
They're not even that. Yeah, they're not even that creative sometimes, but they like it. It's easy.
All right. Well, if you were going to leave our listeners with one thing to get them into comedy, what would it be?
Oh, geez.
When you can make it 10 things if you want.
But do you mean like get them to try comedy?
Yeah,
or get them to watch?
So, the point of this show is for people to listen, and if they're into that hobby or that profession, to try it out, maybe.
That they get up and try it.
Yeah. So,
you know what I would say?
What would you tell them?
I would tell them the same thing that I told my students. I didn't even bring this up yet, but at my old school that I taught at, I taught a speech class, and I had full control over the curriculum of the speech class. And this is when I was like still in the middle of performing.
Okay.
And I thought, let's do a stand-up comedy unit. So I made it from the ground up, just based on like what I've seen, looking stuff up online, hearing from like people who are way better than me at comedy. And I told them like this idea of I'm not funny, like it's just not, like, especially for stand-up comedy, it's just not true. Like, stand-up comedy is just it has nothing to do with you being the person who usually makes people laugh. And I feel like it has more to do with when you really just think of like what makes a joke funny, it's just you're sharing like your unique perspective of something that someone hasn't thought of before. That's what I've always felt like a good joke is. Like, oh, I've never actually thought of that in this way, right? Mm-hmm. And there's some people who are really good at doing that. And I'll remember when I taught this unit and I told them, all of you are going to get up and you're going to do a 3-minute stand-up set. That's going to be your unit final. And a bunch of them got really, really scared. And one of my students, she was like this, the prototypical straight A kid who like could do all the things like a robot really well. Like, you tell me what to do and I'll memorize what you want me to do and I'll do it exactly as you asked me. But like creatively, like really struggled and didn't stand up and talk in front of people a lot. And it really scared her that like, she had never been considered funny or anything. And she ended up having like, I thought like, well, what's something that is uniquely you? And her big thing was like, I'm obsessed with my grades and I freak out if I'm not going to do well on something. And her whole stand up set was just about that part of her. It was just about like all of the ways in which she lets that overtake her life. And she killed. Like people thought she was super, super funny. And it was, to me, it was like the perfect example of like literally anyone could do this. You could be terrified to death and you could still make people laugh. It just, all it has to do with is just like sitting down and thinking of what you have to say. What's the unique thing that you need to share? So that's it.
I like it a lot. Well, thank you for joining us today. And like always, ouncers, drink it 1 ounce at a time.
There we go.